Well, class, Professor Zenos here, doing a week 3 wrap up. We were talking about budget management, controlling, rather constructing, and managing a study budget. And part of the assignment was to come up with 5 additional line items. The one thing that I noted and commented on was that a number of the line items that you were suggesting, that you were putting together, they were more like subcategories. And one of the things that jumped out at me is line items that would fall more under, say, a PI grant. And that was why I put one of those in the announcement for you to take a look at, because overhead was brought up a couple of times. And overhead it falls, you would not see it in a clinical study budget. The clinical study budget being the overall study budget, of which one line would be the PI grants. And then, of course, if you wanted to know more about the PI grant, that would be on another tab. You could open it up and then see what the PI grant for that was put together for that particular study. If you needed to, then you could get additional tabs that would look at the individual PI grants that were developed for specific physicians, for specific investigators, because there are times where you can send out the PI grant to all of the investigators, and you can say take it or leave it. I've seen I've seen that done before. I've never done it before. I don't know. Every situation is going to be different. They're going to be different institutions. They're going to have different costs that are not going to necessarily exist at other people, and it's going to be part of the negotiating process. Let's say that you've got a grant that's $5,000, but you don't have any closeout fees. Well, somebody's always going to have a closeout fee, or they've got pharmacy fees, and so there usually needs to be some discussion about a PI grant. But anyway, I don't want to get too far into that. But that's why I send out the PI grant, so you could see. And what I sent out was pretty realistic. Everyone's going to be different, or every study PI grant is going to be different, but that's a pretty realistic looking one. They're certainly going to be shaped most of the time like that. You were to answer 2 questions. Why is it important to to forecast correctly? Or just like if your own budget, if you expect to spend excuse me, a certain amount of money within a year, and you dramatically overspend, well, now I've moved into the ramifications, haven't I? So let's go back to the importance of forecasting. The upper management, when you come up and you develop a budget and you say that to meet certain milestones within a 1-year period, I'm going to need $2 million. An upper management has decided to give you those $2 million, and they expect those milestones to be met. And so they can go on, and as part of their larger budget, they know that for your study for this year, you're going to spend $2 million. And so that's the importance of that. Now, what are the ramifications for going over and under? Some of you all talked about Sarbanes-Oxley, which is something I've talked about in previous semesters and really wasn't seen before. I don't know if the information has permeated into this class, but you all did very well in bringing that up. It's not something that's often seen in, quite frankly, I've never seen it used in pharmaceutical company. I don't know where it's actually being applied, but it sort of came out of the Enron, WorldCom bankruptcies back in the 90s, when companies and members of upper management within these companies were spending stockholders' money wildly to the point of where the companies were bankrupted, and there was no real consequence to a number of these. And so now they have to sign off, upper management, because I still remember the Enron cases. I'm sitting here thinking about this, where everybody was just sort of pointing fingers at everybody else. The CEO was saying, I don't know, I'm just the CEO, pointing his fingers at the finance, the CFO, and the CFO pointing his fingers at somebody else, and so what Sarbanes-Oxley, in a broad sense, is extremely complicated. But upper management each one has to personally sign off on the financial records that they put that are going to stockholders to review. Now, how does research come into that? Well, if every study that a company was doing spent 2 or 3 or 400% more than they were expecting. So instead of $1 million, they spent $4 million, and every study spent $4 million. And instead of their research budget being, I don't know, $100 million, it suddenly is $400 million. The stockholders are going to be very curious as to how that's happening, and it's just sort of a sort of Damocles hold being held over the upper management as to be sure that they're running the financial aspects of their company well. And even though I've never been part of a company where I ever saw anything like that happening, and I've never even heard of it being applied to a pharmaceutical company. It's something that's always hanging over your head. What if you underspend? A lot of you got this exactly right. You've tied up money that could be applied to another study or to another program, one that's either been stopped or been canceled altogether. And so, if you underspend, that's kind of that's what the thinking is. As always, you would have to come up with an explanation. If you far exceed, let's say that you were expecting to spend $1 million to get 100 patients, but you get 100, you spend 1.5, and so you've condensed the time frame and the money that in itself brings a lot of other problems. I don't want to get too much into that, but you've got to. There are situations in which something like this can happen. You underspend because your enrollment is so slow, which is kind of what we're getting into week 4. So, like I said, this can get very, very messy, but there are always consequences about it, and oftentimes you can probably explain it away, but you're going to have to address it as well. So, week 4, we're going to be looking at a root cause analysis, metrics, and goal setting. You're presented with a situation in which you're not meeting enrollment. You've got low enrollment, and so you're going to have to come up with a plan as to how you're going to boost enrollment. So you're going to look at a root cause analysis, come up with a SMART goal. The SMART goal being the A being attainable. These are the big ones for me. Being attainable, realistic, the R, and trackable. And SMART goal, there's a lot of words that are often applied to the acronym, but those are the ones that I think are extremely important in this circumstance, because it's got to be attainable and realistic. Otherwise, you're setting a goal that you'll never meet, and again, you're just digging a deeper hole for yourself. And trackable with the software that you have available to you. Sometimes at some companies it's phenomenal, and other companies they've got low budgets, and so the sophistication of the software that they have on site and that they allow their PMs to use reflects that. But one way or the other, you're going to have to figure out a way to track and to ensure that the new timeline that you set forth is being reached. And if it's not, then you're going to have to make additional adjustments. For the PowerPoint presentation, as you guys know that you're supposed to be applying this to, I can't help but think, don't make the slides busy. Bullet points, and then you speak to them. What you are saying, and you as the person are that wealth of knowledge, not the slides. You don't want somebody in a realistic situation looking at your slide and reading the slide and not even hearing you, because then you simply disappear. If that was going to be the case, then you don't need to be. Nobody needs to be presenting at all. You would just be clicking on slides. As a project manager, developing slides and doing presentations with those slides is going to be something that's going to be very, very common. Whether you're doing it for upper management, or you're doing it at an investigator meeting, or you're doing it for trainings, it's something that you're going to have to get used to doing. Practice. Practice the presentation. Once you put the slides together, get to know those slides. Reference them only for, and so that when you go through each bullet point, enough up there that somebody knows what you're going to be discussing, and then you're going to put meat on those on that skeleton of information. Just several bullet points. Like I said, don't make it too busy. Let's see. You can use in-text references. Don't use too many because then they take up too much space in your slide, and again, you're going to be making your slide too busy. Where it's possible, put them at the end, and of course the references, not the slide, not the information, not the bullet points or anything, but the references are always in APA format. Let me see if there's anything else that I can add. Be sure that you have 3 root causes for the 3 root causes for the enrollment, and of course then you plan to address it, and how long it's going to take. The hardest part of and we've tried to address this from previous semesters is the slide with the graphs. Remember that you're going to be overlaying the original graph. You don't touch that, and then for the second part where you're going to be addressing, the yellow aspect of it automatically is going to be reflected on the graph itself. But be sure that it makes sense. I can't tell you how many times I've received, and I've looked at presentations where the information that the student provides simply doesn't make sense. You've got upper management that's going to be looking at this thing, and they're going to want to know, okay, so how is this going? And it's got to make sense. I cannot stress that enough. Obviously, it's been something that has bothered me in the past. I want to be sure that I get this across this time. As always, if there are questions, you can reach out to me. You can text me, email me. I'm much more responsive to text because I'm always messing with the phone, and I don't get indications as to when emails pop up. Good luck, and we will see you on the discussion board.